So I read this really fascinating, interesting news story reported by CNN several years ago that an elderly woman living in Tel Aviv, Israel, her daughter wanted to give her a gift, and she realized that her mom had been sleeping on this for decades. She'd been sleeping on this old, lumpy mattress that just had to be so uncomfortable, and so she decided that she would surprise her mom with a brand new mattress. And so one day when her mom was gone, she went in, she bought a new bed, a new mattress, brought it into the house, set it all up, took the old one, put it out to the curb, trash truck came, took it away. Her mom got home, and she said, "Mom, I have something for you." Brought her up to the bedroom, said, "You don't have to sleep on that old lumpy mattress anymore. I bought you a brand new bed." And for some reason, her mom wasn't as excited as she should have been. And she said, "Where's the old bed?" And they're like, "Oh, you don't have to worry about that old thing. The trash truck already came and took it away. It's probably at the dump by now." Her mom said, "Call the dump and tell them that they have to find that old mattress. We have to get it back." Because as it turned out, her mom, true story, okay? True story. CNN said it. It must be true. So, back on track. No, seriously. They called the dump. They couldn't find the mattress. They had guys out there looking for the mattress. See, as it turns out, her mom had been saving extra cash in the mattress and stuffing the mattress full for decades, and they estimated that she had over $1 million in cash stuffed in the mattress. When word got out, probably from the guys at the dump looking for the mattress, they had to hire security guards to secure the dump so that treasure seekers wouldn't get in and break into the dump trying to find the mattress. And as of the report and the story that I read, they had not yet found the mattress. Can you imagine going bankrupt over a mattress stuffed with cash? So I thought, well, I need some additional perspective on this story and just see how other people might respond to the story. So I said, "Hey, Easton's my 10-year-old son. Come on in here. Let me tell you the craziest thing I heard." And I tell him the story. I'm like, "What do you think about that?" And I can see the wheels are turning. And because he's a future man, he doesn't say much. He has like 10 words a day. And he's like, "Why would I want to waste 4 of them on you, Dad?" So, kind of have to get it out of him. And I said, "What do you think? What do you think of that? Like, what do you think of all the things she could have done with that $1 million stuffed in a mattress?" He's like, "Yeah, like she could have bought me a Nintendo Switch." I love that perspective of kids, right? Because they're like, "Yeah, $1 million, buy me a Nintendo Switch," Or it'll go the opposite way. You're like, "What could you do with $1 million?" You're like, "Yeah, she could have bought the country of Spain." You're like, they just not great perspective on like the value of the money. But he's like, "Yeah, she could have bought something great with that." You know what? Maybe this week I just realized, even last night as I was sharing this, that I struggle all this week with our discussion questions that we put in the bulletins that many of our small groups use. I didn't have like one of the, just couldn't figure out a really great like opening question, like icebreaker question. Maybe that's the question that you talk about in your small groups, just so don't let it dominate the whole time, right? Like if you found the mattress and after months of searching you couldn't find the owner, what would you do with the $1 million you found in the mattress? Let me talk about that a little bit. Because, and it kind of gets us to what we're going to talk about today. The answer to that question indicates something about you. You see, here's what I've discovered. When it comes to adults, and we ask questions like this, or like maybe the question, if you get a Christmas bonus this year, what are you going to do with it? Most of all, we're going to do, usually as adults, we'll do 3 basic things with our money, right? We'll spend it, or we'll save it, or we'll give it. And for most of us, the management of our money, when it comes in like paycheck to paycheck every couple of weeks or so, when the money comes in, usually that's the order in which we deal with the money that we have. Like we spend it first to take care of our needs, pay the bills, take care of ourselves with what we need to survive and thrive and live. And if there's some left over, we might save some of it for the future needs. And still, if there's some left over, we'll give some away. And then we take a financial money management class, and money management folks would say, no, you need to live with a plan. You need to be more proactive with that. You see, if you pay yourself first and save some first, that's the best way, rather than just kind of trying to save the leftovers, because we're so good at spending, usually there's nothing left over, right? And so save some first and then budget to live on the rest, and then that way you will get around to saving. And then you take like Financial Peace University or like a Christian-based money management class in which we discover we're not only to be managers of money, but stewards of the money that God has entrusted to us. And when we do it God's way, we even flip it around even more. And we say, here's the best way to handle your money. You give first, not give the leftovers. Give first, and as one of my friends would say, when you give God the first 10%, 90% is more than 100% when the 10% is God's. And that's what he's found out in his own life. And so we'd say, you give first. Well, here's the best way I've heard someone say it. Give some, then you save some, and you live on the rest. And you budget the rest and live within your means, spending only what is left in the rest. And if you can give some first, save some second, live on the rest, you will manage your money very, very well. Basic money management principles. Then, once you have the basics down, you get to move into advanced money management stewardship principles. And we talk about the fourth thing that you can do with your money, and that is invest it. When you invest it, you look way out into the future and to say, what do I want to be able to do? What do I need to do way out in the future? What is big stuff? Like if I sacrifice some now on a regular basis and invest some now, the future could be, if it turns out to be good investments, amazing. And I've discovered, I just would argue that all of us have a money mentality. And it's indicated by, like, our primary view of money is indicated by how we handle money. And these, they're four basic money mentalities. Read them with me, would you? Spend it, save it, give it, or invest it. And most of us will, when we get paid, we will lean towards or get excited about our primary money mentality. And so if your mentality with money is that money is to be spent, that when you get paid, you're probably broke by Friday night already because you've already spent it. If you're really bad with that, but the problem with a basic like spend it mentality is, here's the basic problem, is that a spend it mentality when it comes to money is often just based on survival, but is often very focused on myself. Like, I spend money on myself to survive. If I have some more, I spend the rest of it to have fun and to enjoy life, because the purpose of money is to give me a good life, to provide a good life. I work so that I can live. And everything I make, I spend so that I can live. And if I get some overtime, then I can live even better. I can buy some more toys that make life even better. My mentality with my money is a spending mentality. The second mentality, maybe that some people have towards money, is a save it mentality. And I know I have to spend some to like survive and to provide for my needs, but as much as I can, I want to save as much as I can. Now, this can be healthy or unhealthy. In a healthy sense, when saving is planned, it's good because we know we need to save some for that rainy day fund, for the emergency that will happen. We just don't know when, and we want to be ready. So when Erica and I took Financial Peace University for the first time, we began to work through the baby steps. We got that $1,000 starter emergency fund there, and then later we kind of backfilled it with more and more to be ready. Even just having that $1,000 there was so freeing for us and just helps us to rest a little bit so that we could have conversations. And as we were figuring out how to budget and how to live on the rest, when the emergency came and something broke and we had to write a large check and it depleted most of the emergency fund, we didn't fight about it. It didn't feel good to deplete the emergency fund, but it was there, and it was so good to have saved some for when the emergency came. However, if your primary attitude towards money is one of money is meant to be saved and you got to save as much as you can, a save it money mentality can go bad when you're motivated by fear of never having enough. I need to save as much as I can, save, because you never know. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what might happen. You never know if I might lose or if this might happen. You never know. So save it. Sometimes the stories of folks who have the $1 million, and I don't know if it was this lady, but sometimes the $1 $1 million stuffed in the mattress is a person who had the $1 million, never spent it, was unwilling to spend it, and they were living a life of poverty. We've heard these stories all the time. They're living a life of poverty because they wouldn't spend it even though they had it, because their primary approach to money was based on fear and was a save-it mentality. Or you can have a give-it mentality, in which money is meant to be shared and given. And yes, I got to pay the bills and buy food. And yes, I have to save some for an emergency fund, but I love to give. And I know some folks who are in a place of their lives where they have extra and they're able to give, and they love to give it and help people and be generous, and they don't want even others people to know. They're not giving for the credit. They're giving for the joy because they just love to give it. And money, they're like, money is best used when it is given away. Have a give it mentality. We love those people. We highly respect them. And the fourth money mentality is an investment mentality. An investment mentality is different from a give-it mentality because an investment mentality is like intentional. It's focused. It's long-term. It's like, I'm going to save some, I'm going to invest some now, and I'm going to struggle now investing some with hopes and dreams and plans that in the later it will have multiplied exponentially. Rather than giving to one person, one at a time, to bless individuals, my hope is that in the future, with an investment mentality, I will bless families, groups, towns, countries. It has multiplied and blessed lots of people as an investment mentality. And I would argue that every one of us, when it comes to money, we would, like, our go-to with how we handle money lands in one of these four categories. So several years ago, a marketing company wanted to figure out how to market to wealthy individuals. And said, how do we like do advertising and marketing to sell really expensive stuff to people who have a lot of money who can buy our really expensive stuff? So they hired a research firm to research high net worth individuals, folks who are really wealthy. And so to do that, they discovered who these folks were, and they invited them in for meetings and focus groups and interviews, and they put on the spread because they thought these are folks who are living at a very high level, and so we would provide lots for them, and let's provide a great experience and environment. And they said that even as these individuals arrived to the various meetings, they were quickly separated into two different groups, almost like it was two different kinds of people. They were all very wealthy, but they lived they just showed up with different lives. Like the first group showed up, and they were dropped off in their limos, and the men had very expensive suits and wore Rolex watches. And when they came in, they found the wine and the caviar. The other group drove themselves, oftentimes in older cars. They had regular old clothes. Often they were dressed very nicely, but in a suit they might have purchased at a simple department store. They wore Timex watches, and they walked in, found the spread, and went over to the chips and beer. As they began to talk to these individuals, they discovered something about them. They discovered that the well-dressed, Rolex-wearing crowd were living on trust funds, somebody else's money was given to them. Group over here that wore the Timex watches often were first-generation wealth. They had worked really hard. They were often entrepreneurs who had built businesses. They were professionals who worked really hard in their profession and then reinvested in their profession, their business, or in other businesses and both groups had lots of money, but they lived very different lives. And here's how we might, this maybe a little too simplistically, but the ways and the view that each group had towards money was remarkably different. The Rolex-wearing crowd had a mentality of money that money is meant to be spent on myself. The Timex-wearing crowd viewed money to be invested, long-term, greater gains. Now, today's not about money. But today's about life. But really anything of value can kind of be put in these four categories. Your time, your energy, your talents, even relationships. I mean, if we think about time, I would argue that in our culture, time is more scarce and rare than money. And so we could have a conversation about time, like people have a time mentality. Maybe you know some folks who their mentality to how they use and manage their time is they have a spend-it mentality with time, and that time is just meant to be spent, and they don't not a whole lot of thought, not a lot of planning. They just kind of drift and go wherever they want, and not to be mean or judgmental, but we'd say, man, they're kind of wasting their life because they're just kind of randomly spending the time that they have with no real point or purpose. Other people have a save-it mentality with time, and they're worried that I'm not going to have enough time, and so they kind of keep to themselves. They don't do very much. They don't make very many commitments. They're just like, I got to keep time because time's limited. And we're like, that doesn't seem like that much of a great of a life either. But you know some folks who their time, they freely give it. And they freely serve when it's time to serve, and they help people when it's time to help. And their view of time is that they're going to use their time to give it away to others. And then there's folks who view time as an investment. To say, I only have so much time, and so I am going to maximize my time. I'm going to think long term. I'm going to give my limited time today to the things that will bring the greatest returns in the future. And they have an investment mentality of time. And when it comes to any of it, relationships. Think of folks who view relationships and people with a spend-it mentality. We call it using people. The relationships, they just spend all that influence and use it. Other people have an investment mentality when it comes to relationships. And they see the people around them as people to be loved and to be invested into. And those are two different ways of living life. See, here's what I'd like you to think today, that if we take our time, if we take our energy, if we take our talents and abilities and skills, if we take our relationships, and yes, even our money, you put all of that together, that's your life. And Jesus said in John chapter 10, verse 10, the thief's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. My purpose, Jesus said, is to give them a rich and satisfying life. Other translations would say, my purpose is to give them an abundant life. My purpose is to give you, a Jesus follower, Jesus says, my purpose is to give you a rich, satisfying, abundant life. But here's what I discovered. How we define and how we receive and interact with the rich, satisfying, abundant life that Jesus gives us depends on how we define and depends on our mentality towards life. Will I take my life, time, energy, money, abilities, everything, right? Relationships. Will I take my life and spend it? Will I take my life and save it? Will I take my life and give it? Or will I take my life and invest it? You know what? Jesus had an opinion about this. In Luke chapter 12, Jesus is out teaching. There's lots of red ink here, and those are all the words in red in my edition of the Bible. And as Jesus is teaching, he takes a breath, and somebody dares to interrupt him. We read this in Luke chapter 12, starting in verse 13. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." You hear that, right? He interrupts Jesus as he's teaching about like eternal life and joy and peace and all that. And he's like, ooh, Jesus, I have a question. Will you tell my brother, my dad died and he's not being fair with the estate and he won't give me my part? You're like, really? That's the most important thing we can all talk about right now? Jesus replied, verse 14, "Man, who appointed me a judge or arbiter between you?" Which is funny when you think about that. Anyways, he's like actually the judge, but anyways. Then he said to them, the crowd, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." In other words, life does not equal more money. Life does not equal more stuff. The good, blessed, abundant, satisfying life does not equal an abundance of more money, time, relationships, stuff, especially money. And then he told them this parable, because truth is well received in stories. And he said, "The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest." Bumper crop that year. And so he thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "This is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and I will build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, self, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. Do you hear it? Towards money and life. Spend it mentality. Or save it only so that in a couple years I can spend it all on me. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Not like I'm going to strike you down, but just like this was your night. Well, not your night, but your night. This is it for you. And then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? End of story. Jesus applies it to your life, and he says, this is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God. He said, if when it comes to money, or more importantly, if when it comes to life, everything of value in your life, if your mentality is life is meant to be spent or saved for me, this is how it will be for people who store up things for themselves but are not rich towards God. And then Jesus keeps teaching. Verse 22, then Jesus said to his disciples, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. For life is more than food, the body is more than clothes. Consider the ravens. They don't sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, and yet God feeds them. How much more valuable are you than birds? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? Since you can't do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Consider how the wild flowers grow. They don't labor or spin. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. And if that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today, tomorrow it's thrown into the fire, how much more will he clothe you? You have little faith. And do not set your heart on what you will eat or drink. Don't worry about it, for the pagan world runs after all such things. And your Father, he knows that you need them. But seek his kingdom, and all these things will be given to you as well. Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom of God. You can sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that won't wear out, a treasure in heaven that will never fail, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And if all your treasure is in your barn, kept stored up just for you and your own enjoyment and your providing of a better life only for you, that's where your treasure is. It's all in the barn. But if your treasure, if what's most important to you, if what you have given your life for is for others, is for God, and what God is doing in the world, God's kingdom on earth that he is building through people everywhere, if you have invested and given your life to the work of God, that's where your treasure is. That's where your heart is. Jesus advocates a giving mentality, an investing mentality, not only with our money, but with our lives. And Jesus says this is the kind of life that is rich, satisfying, abundant. This is life lived at full potential. So a little over a year ago, after lots of prayer, lots of planning, lots of conversations with many of us, with many of you, staff members, and praying and saying, Lord, what kind of church do you want us to be as we move into the future? This phrase kept coming back, help people live their full potential. We began to sense that we have so many people with so many talents and abilities, and God has given us passions to help and serve and meet so many different needs. How do we do all that? We do that by helping you and helping each other discover our God-given passions. We do that by helping everybody live life at full potential, and because we believe that God has created you and your life with amazing, incredible potential, and we want to do everything we can to help you reach your full potential and live your full potential. As we talked about it and began to pray and think and plan towards that, we realized living at full potential, it's not a quick and easy decision, but it is a series of choices. It is like a long, hard journey up a mountain. And so this image of a mountain and a path up the mountain has become our primary image to help us illustrate what we mean by reaching and living our full potential. And so if you'll notice our new little logo and you're like, what is that circle with the weird thing inside of it? Do you see it now? It's the mountain and the path up the mountain, and which represents we are going to do everything we can do to help you take steps to reach and to live your full potential. Now, when you hear us talk about it, you'll hear us regularly add at the end of it, we want to help you live your full potential in Christ. Because we need to regularly remind ourselves that without Christ, we will never live our full potential. You know why? If you are seeking to live your full potential and Jesus isn't in the picture, you are going to lean towards a spend it, save it mentality. And that will leave you disappointed every single time. But with Jesus in the picture, and I believe only with Jesus in the picture, Jesus will lead you to seek a full potential life with an investment mentality, with a giving mentality. And so, we ask questions like, God, where can I invest my life? God, where can I invest my time, my energy, my talents? God, where are you leading me to give, to serve, and most of all, to think long-term, to invest myself in the way that'll pay off the most for you, for your people, for the people around me? Or maybe the better question we ask is this. Because as we've discovered, it's not programs that last, that are eternal, it's people that are eternal. Maybe it's better prayed like this: Lord, who do you want me to invest in? Because when you invest in people, people are eternal. That is a long-term investment. When you invest in the next generation, that investment pays off in future generations. And you know what? Investment thinking is legacy thinking. When you invest in people who then invest in people, it's exponential and it grows, and lots of people are blessed. And the reality is, you and I, we're here today because 12 Jesus followers invested in others, and over the last 2,000 years, followers of Jesus have invested in people around the world, and you and I are the recipients of people who have invested in people. With Jesus, people living at their full potential, serving, giving, even giving their lives. Well, we can talk like this, but I think it's best illustrated in the real life situation of regular people. And it's been really fun over the last year to see several people praying this prayer: Lord, how can I live my full potential in you? Where can I invest my life? And well, one of those is one of our friends, Al. Al Wonke retired recently, and as he retired, he prayed the prayer similar to a lot of people at the time of retirement: Lord, what do you want me to do with my retirement years? And God said, be a trauma chaplain. And I think somewhere in the conversation, Al's like, well, God, I haven't gone to Bible school, I haven't gone to seminary, yet there was this opportunity for folks who haven't to serve as a trauma chaplain in the sheriff's department. And so Al said yes. And he sat down recently and shared with us his story, and I want you to hear his story today. This is the story of someone who says, my life's not my own. I'm going to pray and trust God. God, where do you want me? And he's investing his life. Check out this inspiring story today.
Well, a chaplain is a ministry of presence. It's kind of about just showing up and touching someone and just bringing God's presence to like in my case, to like a trauma scene. Now, I think when I first started, I thought that I probably wasn't capable of doing this because I thought, well, I don't have enough training or enough biblical knowledge. And then the more I learned about it being a ministry of presence, and about God just asking you, would you do this for me? Would you show up? And that's really all he's asking, is that you just be obedient to him and show up, and that he'll take it from there, And yeah, I had a call once where we had to bring some really sad news to a lady, and she actually had became suicidal as we were giving her the information. And it was just a really sad situation, and she ended up needing to be transported to a hospital. And then when we showed up at the hospital to be with her, she was kind of restrained to a bed. And she kind of reached up and took my hand and said, "You don't say much." And then she said, "Thank you for not saying much." And she just wanted to hold my hand. And it was just really awesome to see God working, go from a time of just, out of control to somebody just holding your hand, just being comforted by God. So it really wasn't about words, it was just about presence. I've had many times where people, they ask you, "Why would you do this?" And, they're like, you guys have a horrible job. I can't imagine why you would do this. And it's like, well, I tell them, actually, we volunteer to do this, but we do this because God loves his people, and he wants to send somebody there to comfort them when they're going through a trauma like this. We spend quite a bit of time with them, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours usually after the situation they've gone through, and you'll see a peace come over them. You're just always praying that you can make a little bit of a difference. Because sometimes you feel so inadequate. Nobody wants to be at a call like that, and it's like, it's nothing I would choose to do, but it's like God needs somebody to help his people, and he asks, "Would you do this for me?" And, basically you just have to say yes and go. And yeah, I'm just so thankful I said yes, because really, as long as I've been doing this, I don't think I've ever had more joy in my life, and I felt so blessed. And for just retiring, because I retired about 2 years ago, and I'm just so thankful that God's timing to allow me to do this now. The focus is on other people, it's not on me. I'm not sitting around wondering what I can do. And it's just so neat that God arranged this. I'm so glad that I told him that I would do it, because I couldn't imagine not doing it now. And I pray that I'll be able to stay healthy and do this for many years, but I never know. In the meantime, I just keep thinking I'm just going to keep showing up until God says, "You don't have to show up anymore." Yeah, we're considered trauma chaplains, and so we are 911 dispatched, and usually either a police officer or deputy or a firefighter will request a chaplain to come and be with this family, or else when there's like a death notification that needs to be done, maybe somebody died in another town or something, they'll call like our sheriff's office or something, and they send us to do the notifications. So you never know what you're going to come into when you have to share that kind of news with somebody. Yeah, I mean, it is, for most people, that's the very worst time they've ever had in their life. And it's just amazing that God asked you to be there with them that day. And then you see them go from just out of their mind to being able to accept what they have to go through. I was reading in the Bible the other day, and I realized how many times it says go, and I decided to Google it. How many times does the Bible say go? It's like over 1,500 times that it's in there to go. And I think it's just a matter of trusting God. If God's asking you to do something, just go. Just show up, and he'll take it from there.
Isn't that so great? Serving, giving, investing his life. What would it look like for you to live life with an investment mentality? You say, but I'm not retired. I got to go to work every day. What would it be like for you to show up to work with an investment mentality? Saying, Lord, with whatever influence I have around the people, with the people who work around me, with my job, with the vendors, with contractors, with whoever, like I'm going to show up to work with an investment mentality, and I am going to invest because it's not about me. Or I know a lot of folks who go to their day job and they work really hard all day, and then they come home and they use their time, their spare time in the evenings and the weekends, and they are investors, and they invest in ministries, they take the hobbies or things they love to do, and they figured out how to turn that into an investment in other people, and they just invest their spare free time. That moms and dads who are busy, tired, rather than saying, let's just do our best to try to raise these kids, but to say, no, I'm going to parent with an investment mentality, and I'm going to invest in the future, and I'm going to invest in future generations by investing in the next generation right in my own home. It changes how you live. It changes how you parent. It changes how you love. What does it look like for you to live your full potential? I believe God works in our hearts to change our mindset, to begin to live with an investment mentality. This week, here's how I want you to think. Here's how I want you to pray. God, where can I invest my life? God, where do you want me to invest my life that'll pay the greatest dividends for your glory, for your kingdom, for the people around me? And, God, in whom do you want me to invest my life? And when he says go, like he does 1,500 times in the Bible, you go and you trust him. And he goes before you, and he goes with you, and he goes in you. Pray with me. God, teach us to not live for ourselves, Jesus. God, would you work in our hearts and minds, and Lord, I pray that wherever you find a spend it, save it mindset towards life, God, I pray, would you change our hearts and our lives and our mindset towards life, that we would live our lives with an investment mindset. Lord, when you see us kind of going back to our old ways this week, Lord, would you speak to our hearts? Remind us, long-term investment mindset. Lead us, God. Lord, would you show us where? Lord, would you show us with whom? Lead us, Jesus. We'll follow. In your name we pray. Amen.